to Women Lead, a production of the Women of Color Empowerment Institute, Inc. We are your hosts. I'm Kathy Eggleston.
I'm Bernadette Norris-Weeks.
And I am Michelle Austin-Pammies. We have a great show for you today. We'll focus on leadership in education, what's going right, and what improvements can be made. We have the perfect person to help guide us through the discussion. She's none other than Dr. Dorothy Bendross-Mindingall.
Indeed, Michelle, Dr. Dorothy Bendross-Mindingall is a powerhouse leader who currently serves as the District 2 representative for the Miami-Dade County School Board. She is a former classroom teacher, a principal, former state legislator, and she has spent a lifetime unlocking doors of opportunity for others.
Well, we're looking forward to hearing from our guests to better understand what's happening in education today. Because the Miami-Dade School District is the largest public school district in the southeastern United States and the fourth largest in the entire United States, I think we're going to get a great picture of the state of our public school system nationwide. It seems as though we're getting more of these social issues going through the legislature, and the laws coming out are not necessarily clear operationally for teachers who are going to be on the front line of these policies. We've got all of this talk about CRT, critical race theory in the schools. That is another issue that is a law that maybe was in want of omission.
Yes, and it's happening so much, these wedge issues that are being created for no other good reason other than pure politics. And, the thing I'll have to tell you, at least on the Don't Say Gay bill, the thing that I'm really pleased about is how corporations now are stepping up.
Definitely.
Because their employees are being impacted, their families are being impacted by these corporate executives, by these issues. And think about Walt Disney World. Walt Disney World Corporation, good for them. Hats off. I'm really pleased that they are stepping up to fight against this particular bill.
Well, at great risk.
Yes.
At great risk.
With the governor threatening to
exactly.
take away certain status that they've held since the who knows when, the 50s or before, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, them and they're not alone. We have many issues that need to be dealt with. We've just come through several years of COVID where our children have been out of school and having to be educated in alternative ways. I know that corporations are interested in how we are actually going to educate their workforce
for the next
to be able to compete.
Right. In other words, schools can be focused on education.
A novel concept.
Exactly.
Instead of these, quote unquote, they call it now cultural issues.
Right.
Which is another way of saying wedge issues that can perhaps provoke the interest of a particular group of people so that they can vote a certain way.
To excite them about voting.
Well, that's where strong leadership has to come in at every level. And I'm so glad that we are going to talk to Dr. Dorothy Bendross-Mindingall today. She has been a classroom teacher, a principal, a state legislator. I think she's going to connect a lot of dots for us.
We'll be right back with Dr. Dorothy Bendross-Mindingall, a powerhouse leader who is the District 2 representative of the Miami-Dade County School Board.
Women Lead television show is being brought to you by Toyota, inspiring all of us to let's go places.
This is James.
Jimmy! Mom, Dad, this is James.
Jimmy! James Harrison from Roosevelt High?
Jimmy! Oh! You good, Jimmy?
The 2021 Toyota RAV4.
Jimmy!
The RAV for all of you. Right now, lease a new 2021 Toyota RAV4 LE for just $249 a month for 36 months. Toyota. Let's go places.
At the Women of Color Empowerment Institute, our mission is to enhance and expand leadership by women of color. We do this in a variety of different ways, including but not limited to providing mentorship opportunities for young professionals where we assist in helping to create paths to leadership. We empower women to develop capacities for social change. We produce programs that promote heritage awareness, and we provide training opportunities for business and government. Our institute holds seminars focused on professional success techniques, and we host many other events such as our popular Advocates for Change and Leaders Connect. The Women of Color Empowerment Institute publishes a magazine called Women Lead. Our signature event is the Women of Color Empowerment Conference, a yearly conference where hundreds of leaders gather from all across the United States and beyond. To learn more about membership and how you can support our programs or be a sponsor of the Women Lead TV, visit us at nationalwomenofcolor.com. Again, that's nationalwomenofcolor.com.
The law office of Austin, Pammies, Norris, Weeks, Powell is a full-service law firm practicing in the area of governmental law, including the representation of municipalities, civil litigation, personal injury, real estate, and corporate transactional matters. With over 100 years of collective experience, our attorneys are admitted to practice before state courts, federal courts, and the United States Supreme Court. We are conveniently located in downtown Fort Lauderdale and can be reached at 954-768-9770. Or for more information about the law firm of Austin, Pammies, Norris, Weeks, Powell, visit our website at apnwlaw.com. That's apnwlaw.com.
Welcome back to Women Lead. We are pleased to have with us Dr. Dorothy Bendross-Mindingall. She's a Miami-Dade County School Board member representing District 2.
Welcome to the show.
Dr.
Thank you. So glad to be here. So glad to be here. I received the request from my soror, Bernadette Norris Weeks. And you can't say no to her.
Oh, you're too kind. But they say no all the time.
Thank you so
We're
much.
glad you're
Just
here.
happy to be here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, Dr. Dorothy, you and I go back, let's just say a number of decades. I'm not going to say how many.
Let's just say years.
Years.
Okay.
But our show today is about leadership in education, and you have led on virtually every level. I think I met you when you were teacher, then principal, state legislators, now school board member. So just give us a general perspective, your perspective on the issue of leadership in education. Where are we going?
I just believe that I was born to do this. And everything that you said about me, I didn't pay you, is absolutely true. We're going in the right direction, I believe. We have had some hiccups. But the bottom line is I do this because I work for children. There are times when we get all the time we get our orders from Tallahassee. And having been there as a state representative, I know exactly the games that they play. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to lead as it relates to our children, their safety, their health, and parental involvement and engagement.
And speaking of engagement, I knew you when you were the principal of Lily C. Evans Elementary School.
Yes.
And I was one of the mentors there. This was many years ago.
Yes.
And it really amazed me, Dr. Bendross-Mindingall, how you were able to involve the whole community with that school. You were so successful with getting business leaders to be involved, with getting community people to mentor to kids. And it was just really, fascinating to see. I'm wondering, and I will also say this: when Al Gore ran for president,
Yes.
he and a contingent of all kinds of people came there and made sure that they went to your school. I mean, that is how influential you were as a principal. And so I'm wondering, is that kind of engagement still taking place with communities and schools?
Probably so, Bernadette, but not on the same level. I was not the only principal doing it, but I didn't have a choice. When I came to Lily Carmichael Evans Elementary School, we had poor attendance. And I think you remember you could throw a stone and hit the houses, public housing. So having grown up in public housing, very proud of it, very proud of it. And there's another aside to that. The idea that children were not coming to school when all they had to do was walk across the street Well, I just decided I can fix that. I knew when I was in public housing, nobody was on the in the yards and playing because we had a manager, and you all might have heard of this manager. The manager's name was Captain Scott. You might have heard of Jessica, James E. Scott Community Association. Well, we played with his grandchildren. He was the one who saw to it no one is going to be out here. Everyone is going to be in school. So I took some of the lessons I learned from this man. I was a little girl, and I told the parents if they didn't send the children to school, I would come get them. And they asked Kathy, they looked at me, oh, she's not coming, because she didn't know anything about public housing, but they didn't know. Well, the first day of school, they challenged me. And I went to the neighborhoods. And I knocked on the doors. And I stood there until the children came across the street. So the parental engagement part started right then. Right then. If this principal, you have to dress up so you look nice for the children. Look at her in this linen suit. And, and at the time, I was speaking proper English. And I said, yes, I'm here for the children. Did you bring 60 Minutes? Well, I had Channel 4, 6, 7, and 10 with me, yes. They walked with me to get the children. And the parents just took a liking to me. We built trust. They started coming across the street to volunteer. They were hired for 3 hours. Then they were hired for 5 hours. Then they were hired for full-time positions. I honored them. They all got proclamations. Most of them are ready, here the years, are ready to retire. Not with a job, but with a career. 2 of them have the same certification that I have. Very proud of them. Long story, part of a book that I'm writing.
I'll tell you, these days there's a lot of talk in the education system about critical race theory. And other people are thinking that should that be the focus instead of getting our kids back up and running post-COVID, where they had to suffer from having less time in the schools with their teachers and their classmates. What do you think about that whole debate and exactly what can be done to get the kids back on track after COVID?
Well, for our children, all children, but our children, they lost almost 2 years of learning. This CRT, we don't teach that. We don't even talk about it. I don't understand, but then I do. It's a distraction. Yes, you're right. Our children need to be in school every single day. In fact, some of them are still homeschooled, and the parents don't have the skills and the knowledge to do what they should for their children. So this CRT, and we've had to deal with parents coming to the school board telling us what we should not be doing. Well, it was a waste of their time and our time. Why? Because we're not doing it. We never have. You can get that pretty much in one of our members in this conversation will tell you. It might come across when they're in law school and other places like that. We were not doing it. The audience should know. We do not teach CRT. That's not just Miami-Dade County Public Schools. That's all schools. We do not teach it.
Well, I want to drill down a little bit more into some of these matters that kind of go toward legislative initiatives and ultimately, the COVID policies, the CRT discussions, the Don't Say Gay in Florida and going to other states. These things filter down to the classroom teachers. And I want to ask you how these things are impacting teachers, their ability to teach and be effective in the classroom, these liability concerns now that schools have to deal with. How are schools and teachers dealing with these issues?
They are soldiers. They are first responders. We have what we call staff development. They are trained. They go to different classes to share what should be done in terms of COVID in terms of, you mentioned CRT. Anything that comes from Tallahassee, as I said before, be reminded now, when they go to Tallahassee and a certain group will not vote for these issues, but the numbers are greater on the other side, and we have to find a way to have our first responders know that what we can do and what we can't do. The legislation is there. As I said to you earlier, I am a former state representative. We know. We do our debates. We say whatever we need to say. But when the numbers come across, if the numbers are greater on one side of the aisle than others, we must do what we can to teach our children without being in violation. We might be upon a part of a lawsuit, which I can't go into, because we have decided that we're going to save our children, we're going to educate our children. I voted for children to be treated equally. I will never, ever, ever deny a child to be whomever they say they are. And as a teacher, I believe, and I know that we got to abide by Tallahassee, but I know that we're going to have some difficulties ahead. As Dr. King would say, some tough roads ahead. Why? Because children are who they are.
Yeah, it's horrible. And I hope that the legislators continue the fight, even if they're in the minority. And
Yes.
for those people who can fight through the court system, I hope it
We will.
I hope it
We
continues.
will. We're not giving up.
Well, that's good to hear. And let's stay on the legislative side for a bit. So we know that recently Senate Bill 1048 passed, which officially replaces Florida's standards assessment with progress monitoring measures to measure students' growth. And so far, it looks like for the next legislative, or for the next school year, I should say, students will have 3 short check-ins instead of a multi-day end-of-year test. And I'm wondering, what is your thought about this change in this English, having English language, arts, and mathematics come in a different form of testing? Do you think that the legislature is getting this right, or would you have done something different if you were in the legislature today?
Well, you mentioned, Bernadette, we met years ago when it was different testing. But many children don't test well. They just don't. I can give you just a quick story about me when I was coming through school. I was tested on the Stanford, and I scored so well on the test, I got to skip grades. But that's me, I'm a test taker. The children got to the goalpost with the other test, and as soon as they seemed to master that test, it was snatched and pushed farther back. No, I would not have changed it that quickly. Why? Because teachers teach and they test. Teachers test probably every day. No longer will they hold children responsible if they don't know. They will test them and they will diagnose whatever the results are, and then they will reteach. Those are our teachers. If you have never taught, doesn't mean that you can't, because we have some teachers who have not been teachers all of their careers, but they have gone into teaching. But no, I would not have changed it so quickly. I don't know how our schools will do on this. In Dade County Public Schools, prior to this, we didn't have one F school in Dade County. I don't know if the public knew that, but we didn't have one F school. Now we will see how this comes about. And I don't want to sound impatient and that things shouldn't change. I believe in change, but change for good. And I'm not too sure that this is the kind of change we're getting.
There's a lot of debate about the merits of a public education. And some folks are going towards other types of education, homeschooling, charter schools, private schools. What is the future of public education?
Probably a little bit of both, all three, I should say. We have charter schools, Dade County Public Schools, because charter schools are public schools. We are still under the auspices of the state, no doubt. Nonetheless, we don't have control over charter schools, as it were. Charter schools have their own school board. We have our school board. I don't think we will ever regain the numbers that we had. I think charter schools now supersede the numbers that we thought they would. But to answer your question as succinctly as I can, it's not going to change. We have private schools, we have charter schools, we have what is the public schools. But charter schools are considered public schools. It's not going to change. We're not going back. We're going to keep some of those children, because charter schools are now building. In fact, on my campuses, several of my schools, they share space. They share space. Point Siena Park Elementary School, which is the school that my younger brothers and sisters went to, they have the Point Siena Park on this side, the county public schools, and charter schools right there, because we've lost numbers, so we share the space. But it's not going to change. It's going to be the same. We have a whole department in Dade County where we have staff. That's all they respond to would be charter schools issues. Let's just say you all wanted to start a charter school. Let's just say we did not want to approve of that charter school. We couldn't. We can't stop it. You could go to the state and get the approval. So what we have now would be a charter school, because they are public schools. They get to share the space. They get to share the resources. Everything that we would do, they would do it. No, it's not going to change. In my opinion, and from what I can see in numbers, it's going to remain the same or go higher.
So here's a question more about you, and I think we would be remiss if you came to the show and we didn't talk about your deep history in Miami-Dade County and your connection. I mean, not just with the community and all of the ways that you connect, but also your family history. You grew up in an area called Railroad Shop Colored Edition, which has a long history. In fact, in August of 1947, I've read about you, and your family was evicted from land that now is owned by the school board, right? So how about that, right? And now you sit on the very same school board that evicted your family from land through eminent domain back in 1947. Your family, along with 30 plus other families, right? And some of those families went to an area that's now West Park. Some went to Coconut Grove. And it's just a really interesting story. So I'm wondering if you can just talk a little bit about that. I know you had like 20 to 30 minutes to get all of your family, to get all of the things out and leave. How do you feel now that you're serving in this position where the school board actually did such wrong to your family and others so many years ago?
And I smiled. I tell you, one of my older brothers who sent me to college was what they called a runner. And he had to run and knock on doors and tell the people, you've got to go, you've got to go, you've got to go, you've got to go. You know one of the families very well, the Brainans.
Wow.
Yeah, they were in the number. In fact, one of the schools is named for Lenora Brainan Smith. Then another one is named for Georgia Jones Ayers. Since I've been on the board, I've had all of those schools named for African Americans, and that was my charge. But how do I feel about it? I am delighted to sit up there every month, and they have to look at me. And probably they are gone, but their children and their children's children will always know the story. I have a story to tell. I am writing my story. It must be told. So much more than what we can do in this time frame.
Interesting thing about this area is it was right outside of a white community, and it was just a pocket, but the surrounding the area was a white community.
And so many of our young people think of these kinds of stories as ancient history,
Yes.
and they're not.
And here I am.
Here
Correct.
we sit.
Exactly.
Here we sit. And so I want to ask you, when you think, and you mentioned global before,
Yes.
when you think globally about America, American competitiveness, how education fits into that, our businesses are changing so quickly. They've changed so much over the last couple of years. Everything is hybrid. Everybody is working differently. As an educational leader, what do you think the K through 12 public education system needs to be doing to allow us to compete more effectively in this new global landscape?
In this room, I heard different areas of technology that I'm not familiar with. Now, I could have a child in grade 4 or 5. If their homes, just remember now, our children were out for COVID. Many of our children lost because they didn't have the devices. Many of them stayed in their lane. Why? Because they did have them. But that's what we've got to insist upon. We've got to insist upon all of our children having what they need. That's why when you come to the schools, and I visit the schools, some of them have better technology than others. That's where our parents need to be engaged to make sure if my child is in a school in District 2, they have everything that they need. And if my child is in District 3 or 4 and they've got it, whatever they have, all children should have. Otherwise, our kids are not getting a proper education. But it's technology. We can't stop. Our children, and looking at us sitting around this table, and some of us around this table had better opportunities than others. But we fought. And here we are, sitting here now talking to you even about my being evicted at 4 or 5 years old and sitting on the school board and also being a state representative. How does that happen? We fight for education. Yes.
And we all have a lot of fight in us, so
Yes.
we're going to keep fighting. Well,
Yes.
we really appreciate your time today, Dr. Dorothy Bendross-Mindingall, and we wish you much success, and we hope that everything that you touch turns to gold.
It seems that way because I'm up here. I'm up here. God bless you all.
That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and until the next time,
Be empowered.